The modes can be a confusing subject. There are 7 of them. They're all built off of one scale, but they're different scales. You start and end on different notes. Like, there's a lot of different ways to look at the subject of modes. But ultimately, you can't really use any of the modes until you can hear them and sort of really connect with how they sound and how they're built. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today you will learn the Dorian mode. I'm going to show you how to play it, what the fingering is, where to get it. And then I'm going to give you some examples of how to use it when we use it. Each one of the modes has a very unique sound. It's got like a sonic personality. And to evoke that personality, you really need a chord progression. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then I'm going to give you some examples, some licks and some ways to play the mode that I used over the top, just to give you some examples of how to use it in a different way that's not just running the mode straight through. The Dorian mode is one of my personal favorites for a number of reasons. The first reason is it's a very easy mode to see. Here it is in the key of A. When you play the pentatonic scale, in this sort of root position, E string root, this is A minor pentatonic. The Dorian mode fits really well over there. It adds 2 notes, obviously, penta being 5. All of the major scale modes are 7-note structures. So it adds 2 notes, but watch where they are. Keeps this one fret, this fret in the middle, and in this example that's fret 6. It keeps it open, which we're used to with this pentatonic scale, and the Dorian mode allows us to keep that visual anchor of that empty fret. It's just very helpful visually to see. The other thing I love about the Dorian mode is that it's one of the most uplifting. It feels like the brightest of the minor scales. If you think about scales like harmonic minor, it's very, very dark. As opposed to Dorian, it's just a lighter sounding scale. Here it is against Aeolian, the natural minor scale, the 6th mode in the major scale modes. This is Aeolian. It's got a very sad tone in that flat 6, whereas the Dorian mode has a raised 6. So it's just, again, not so harsh, not so down and sort of, depressing as most minor scales can be. So that's another reason I really like Dorian. And I'm going to show this to you when we zoom in. The chord progression that Dorian sort of projects or is best used over, or is sort of most derivative of, is a minor 1 to a major 4. Which also has a sort of an uplift in that major 4, and I'll get into that when we zoom in. But it just gives Dorian this great sort of personality. It's a minor scale, but it doesn't sound tragic. And so it allows you to really sort of get free of that down sort of, that sort of depressing sound that minor scales can actually get into. All right, let's zoom in and I'll show you how it works. Okay, the Dorian mode, let's get it on the guitar. I'm going to show it to you, play it for you, and show it to you in the key of A, sort of A Dorian as the tonal center. And then I just want to talk about how you evoke it, like what chord progressions work over it, or I should say under it. Give you a few examples of those. And then I want to just expose some other uses that I think are really, really applicable for the Dorian mode. Let's just get it on the neck first. We're going to be in the key of A minor here. A Dorian. And here's how the scale sounds and looks. As you may or may not already know, any one of these major scale modes, 7-note architectures, can be mapped to the entire fretboard, and it really behooves you to do so. There's a video here on major scale superhighways that gives you a clue. I'm just going to put it here for now in the key of A, just so we can look at it, listen to it, and understand it. But really, it's a great idea to map that 7-note architecture over the entire neck. Okay, let me give you the fret numbers here. Again, A, Dorian. Starting on the 5th fret, on the E string, we have 5, 7, 8, then 5, 7, then 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 5, 7, 8 again, and 5. So that's sort of like the home bass root on the E string shape. It's a really great way to get in and start to hear the mode. The way this mode sort of evokes itself, in other words, the chord progression that produces this sound, is a very simple one. It's minor from the root, from your tonic, like 1 minor, A minor in this case, to D major. That's the chord progression I used at the top as well. Minor 1 to major 4. Now, this chord progression, I would call this a vamp. Just going back and forth. It's called a vamp. You just go back and forth and repeat that. That vamp, that 1 minor to 4 major vamp, is in everything. It's in a lot of funk music. It's in a lot of rock music as well. Uptown Funk, Use Me by Bill Withers, Chameleon, Oye Como Va by Carlos Santana, Evil Ways by Carlos Santana. They all use this 1-4 vamp. Again, 1 minor, 4 major. It really produces that Dorian sound. You can also get this from a chord progression that basically goes 1 minor, 2 minor, 3 major. Those are the two sort of primary chord progressions that produce this Dorian sound. Just for a theory break, what you're really hearing is a 2-5 in the key of G, because Dorian is the second mode. So here's Dorian, A Dorian. Those are really the notes from the key of G. Dorian is the second mode, 1, 2. Right? So really that 1 minor to 4 major is really a 2, 5, 1 in the key of G. But this 2, 5 in this vamp situation is really heard as minor 1 again to major 4. Super popular vamp. It's in a lot of fusion, it's in a ton of funk, etc., as I mentioned before. Okay, one of the other things about this scale that's so great is that it maps really nicely visually against the pentatonic scale. So you know your A minor pentatonic scale. The Dorian mode sits really nicely here. In that it only adds 2 notes to the Dorian mode, obviously. One is the 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the other is the 2, or the 9. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5. Here are the Dorian notes inside the pentatonic scale. I'll play the pentatonic scale first. And here are the Dorian notes that are sort of in addition to it. So visually it maps to the Dorian mode extremely well. That pentatonic sort of underneath it, and those additional Dorian notes really, really making a nice sort of tonal color. Really outlining the Dorian mode really nicely, and that pentatonic scale fits right inside there. Okay, so now I just want to show you a few Dorian licks that I used at the top, and I'll tab these out. The tabs will be on Patreon. I believe I opened the solo with something like this. So I'm just using sort of an arpeggiated sort of idea to cross the scale. That's a nice Dorian sound. Those are all notes from the Dorian scale. Another one I use that I'm really fond of is one I found on a Judas Priest album, and I can't remember what solo this comes from. It's really nice. Starts on the 9. Really pretty. Sort of moves you down, you know, onto the lower strings. And then a third one that I used in this, in the piece at the top, I pulled directly from a solo by Eddie Van Halen off the song Push Comes to Shove, which goes like this. Really nice lick. He starts with an A minor arpeggio. Those are all notes from the Dorian mode. That's a little bit of extra stuff. Anyway, sort of three really nice examples of the Dorian mode being used, sort of not just scalularly, but using some sort of arpeggiated shapes. That one has a little tap in it. So just sort of a nice, you know, library of Dorian licks. Okay, there it is, Dorian mode. The thing you want to do is get the sound of it in your head. And the best way to do that in this case, in this key, it's A minor to D major. And that'll get the Dorian mode in your ears. And when it's in your ears and in your head, and you can see it and hear it at the same time, then it becomes really useful. Okay, so there it is, the Dorian mode. I like to think of this mode as sort of the brightest of the minor modes, you know, as opposed to that Aeolian sound that has the flat 6 in it. The Dorian mode has a major 6. It's just nicer. It's just a little bit more forgiving of a minor scale. One thing I just want to add before we sign off is that, you know, if you're having trouble with the modes, one of the ways to look at each one of these is how is it an altered major scale? So here's our major scale. 1, 2, 3. So instead of that, we flatten. And then that flat 7. Instead of this, you flat the 7. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. So that's another way of looking at these modes. What are their alterations against the major scale? The major scale sort of being the ruler of all things. Okay, Dorian mode, great rock and roll mode, just a fantastic minor scale that doesn't bring you down so hard. You know, it's just got a little bit of lift in that major 6. I hope you enjoy this. I've tabbed it all out, including those licks that I showed in the middle. And those are over on Patreon. Head on over there if you'd like to grab those. Any support on that channel is greatly appreciated. It sort of fuels this whole thing, and I can't think of anything better that I'd like to do with my time than share this information with you. So if you'd like to support the channel, that's a great way to do it. And if you do, I thank you in advance. Okay, Dorian mode. Get it under your fingers, get it in your ears. That's the most important place to use it. And that minor 1 to major 4 vamp, that's where you're going to be able to use it the most. And once you get it in your head, you'll hear that this vamp and this mode is all over the place in modern music. Okay, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.